Wow, there were a lot more people than I was thinking would be here, but great. So thanks for coming. It's good to see some familiar faces, but also slightly terrifying because you know me. But I wanted to give a short introduction outside of what's on this whole thing for you to kind of get to know me. So first and foremost, I'm not a student. I am actually 25 years old. I'm not 12. Some people, I literally had a mom during move-in ask if I was 12 years old, and I said no, politely and / with a little bit of sass, but oh well. Who I am is that I am a brother, I am a son, I am a partner, I'm a friend, I'm a best friend, and I'm someone who has many homes, as you probably read through, more on the West Coast. I'm a lover of people, of learning, of music, of running, and I live by the mission of bringing light and hopefully seeing people and loving them for who they are. That's something that I strive to live for. And that kind of ties into what I do. And so obviously I work in a college campus, and I think that's closely tied to my life's mission of being an assistant director of residence life. And I'm starting my second year here at Elon, and I'm really loving it for everything that it is. And though this past year wasn't easy, it was one of the best of my life, of so much growth and understanding, and realizing that when you feel like the puzzle doesn't fit, it actually does. And it was, it's been a great time, and I'm very fortunate to work alongside such amazing colleagues, as well as literally on the daily I'm impressed by the students that I work with and feel fortunate to be around them. And so you probably came because I said that my life is basically like a unicorn's. And to me, a unicorn, for most of you, is mythological, but for some people it's real. Just asked one of my colleagues, Nolan, who legitimately thought unicorns were real. But I hope that they are real. They're just really rare and we don't see them. And so part of that rarity for me in my life is that, one, I'm brown, and that's obviously pretty rare here in these parts in North Carolina. There's other parts that are, I would say, not so visible that contribute to me feeling like a unicorn. And those parts are twofold in my identity. It's the fact that I'm a Christian, which is very not uncommon here in North Carolina. But the other part is that I identify as queer. And so I'll kind of talk more about those two. And so I grew up as a pastor's grandkid, so my mom was the one who got like all the ideals and the morals and the scriptures from the Bible thrown at her. And luckily for me, out of her 7 siblings, she was the one who kind of was a little bit more of a rebel and thinking critically, and passed down to me the things that mattered, but still she didn't really think through because that was part of her worldview. And so I grew up in a very evangelical Christian home, charismatic, like speaking in tongues and the whole deal, and it was really valuable in my life. But I would say through my progression and understanding of the world and getting to know others who are different from me, I wouldn't say I identify as evangelical as much anymore, because to me, it's not really my place to see someone who I've been walking alongside and been like, you know what, your truth that really gives you meaning and gives you life is wrong, and mine's right. And I think that their truth is their truth, and I think that's a beautiful thing for me to not feel like my responsibility is to change them. And the other part of my identity is that I'm queer. And without going into like the whole story, because it is long. Growing up, I didn't fit into a box. Like, you probably suspect that like the NFL isn't trying to like recruit me right now and being the most masculine guy. But that I act unconventionally, and I think that caused people to be like, hey, are you gay? And I'm like, no. Like, do you think you're gay? And I was like, I like girls, so no. And then the gays were like, are you one of us? I'm like, I don't know. And then like, it was about 22 years of living. I had a conversation with my supervisor and mentor and dear friend, Kendall Gilchrist, and we just had a conversation. She was like, have you ever like been confused or struggled about your sexuality? And that question hasn't ever been posed to me before. And in hearing that and feeling like she knew me and still loved me. I came out to her and said, yeah, that's something that I've been dealing with for a really long time. And I just felt so numb to it because to me they were so compartmentalized that my faith and my sexuality were like two opposite things. And I didn't really mix them together. And I wanted them separate. And so I became numb to that side of me. And that was a time when I feel like took these two separate concepts and then flowed them together, which I feel like makes me a unicorn in that the fact that of queer people of color, the number of those who identify and are not closeted is very slim, but then to add to that being a Christian and still valuing my faith is also slim. And so I think my role as a unicorn isn't necessarily feeling alone, but feeling like the voices that I hear don't really come from my perspective. And in feeling like my voice and my perspective and my identity is kind of a contradiction, I feel like my view on the world and how I interact with people and my connection to humanity and seeing humanity's connection to another has completely shifted. One of my favorite quotes is from F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it's that the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to uphold two opposing ideas and still retain the ability to function. And for me, that's like my whole life, and not just like a cognitive way and feeling like a contradiction, but also operating in that space. And I think that in having both my faith and sexual orientation inform each other, it has really influenced not just how I view humanity, but the concepts that I feel like are tied to humanity. So whether that's grace or hospitality, I think has been instrumental. And so talking to the concept of hospitality in the South is really interesting because it equates like sweet tea on the porch. And I will drink that sweet tea and I will sit on that porch, and I love being in the South. But honestly, I feel like that action is more like a sense of kindness, like inviting someone to your home and making them a meal and then they go away. To me, that's kindness. I feel like saying that's hospitality, for me, is a kind of weak definition of hospitality. And in college, I had a really good conversation with one of my friends about hospitality. And he was doing a research project on it, and for him, and how I've adopted it, the concept of hospitality is inviting someone so deeply into your space, into your being, that there's no distinction of what is theirs and what is mine. That everything that we, like in practicing hospitality, is that there's no hierarchy, because you don't own anything and nothing's yours. You can't say, well, I have this and you don't have it, but then say, oh, but we're still on the same level. Like that doesn't really work. And I think that's kind of tied into the idea of essentially like poverty and how essentially true hospitality can't really be achieved until you give up everything. And I think that's obviously a pretty radical idea, especially in our society. I won't get all political, but I mean, obviously we know which people do not really support that. I think that's something that's super, like I said, radical. But to me, that also is the life of Jesus in sacrificing his life, literally like the most precious thing that you could give, to essentially be connected to humanity. And so in being a unicorn and showing my hospitality, what does it mean for me to be hospitable? And I think for me, it means to be patient with those who are learning. I think it means to give grace to those who hurt me, and essentially empathize and just have that state of mind. And I think an example for me is coming out to my family and coming out to my father, and how it'd be so easy for me to see them affiliated with the church and being like, oh, that's not me anymore, like you hate me, and like I don't want anything to do with you. But in me seeing that my understanding and freedom and liberation is bound in them, that like if there are hate-filled people, that part of my responsibility like that in me, there are still moments that I oppress people and that I show systematic hate to people. And so who am I to say that like, oh, you guys, like I'm not part of you and I don't want anything to do with you. I think that's part of what's being radical about this hospitality is that I want to be associated with you because your ignorance is tied up in my unwillingness to show you my story. And I think I'm not putting the onus on those who are oppressed saying that like it's your fault for not having the privilege to understand. I think it's saying that like there is a responsibility that we have who either misunderstand us or who are privileged to know that, you know, these are our stories and to not remain silent. And so I also don't think of being hospitable as being a pushover. But if being a pushover means holding on to your pride and your personal effects and your status, then I think that you should be a pushover. I think those are things that in the scheme of everything in what this life, the meaning of this life and our purpose, I don't think that those three things really hold anything at the end of the day. And so to kind of close and share more of this concept, I want to end with a quote, and it's by one of my favorite people, Henry Nouwen. And he was a professor at Harvard and Yale, and was a priest and had this amazing status in academia within theology. And he decided that, you know, that wasn't life-giving for him, and ended up helping with a special needs daybreak community called L'Arche. And it completely transformed his life, and he's written amazing works about his experience, and especially has helped form what I believe true hospitality is. And he ends with this quote from his book, Show Me the Way. And he says, we can perceive the stranger as an enemy only as long as we have something to defend. But when we say, please enter, my house is your house, my joy is your joy, my sadness is your sadness, and my life is your life, we have nothing to defend, since we have nothing to lose but all to give. Turning the other cheek means showing our enemies that they can be our enemies only while supposing that we are anxiously clinging to our private property, whatever it is, our knowledge, our good name, our land, our money, or the many objects we have collected around us. But who will be our robbers when everything they want to steal from us becomes our gift to them? Who can lie to us when only the truth will serve them well? Who wants to sneak into our back door when our front door is wide open?